Hello and welcome back to the Wellness Pharmacist. I'm Dr. Kat, your guide for all things autoimmune wellness, science-backed education, and realistic ways to feel better when chronic illness kind of throws a wrench into our days and tries to slow us down. So today we are hopefully answering a question many people have asked. I know I've been asked this. I've asked this to my healthcare team. Can the milk we drink actually worsen autoimmune disease? Is it just a myth, or is there real science behind it? And to explore this further, I've reviewed many different articles. I've read a lot of articles, and I found one in particular that was intriguing. It's called Bovine Milk Proteins as a Trigger for Autoimmune Diseases, Myth or Reality. It was published in the International Journal of Celiac Disease in 2020. So first off, let's get an overview. Cow, goat, and sheep milk account for about 87% of the world milk consumption. 87%. Now, I mainly am used to cow's milk. In North America, we have goat and sheep milk in certain other parts of North America. But I'm really familiar with cow's milk. I remember when I was younger, though, like in the 80s, which is dating me, that almost every commercial, it seemed, that I saw had something to do with milk, drink milk. In the 90s and, of course, early 2000s, there was that campaign, Got Milk, where they were advertising and pushing milk consumption. It seemed really cool because all the celebrities were doing it. And of course, that was the intent. And also, it was advertised as a good source of protein and calcium to make our bones strong, bones and teeth strong. However, Western culture started moving away from this because it was being linked to increased risks for heart disease, hypertension, metabolic syndrome, type 2 diabetes, being overweight, obese, and of course, multiple autoimmune conditions. And these links proved most important during infancy and younger years. So when a child transitions from the mother's milk to cow's milk or another source of milk, generally they do that around a year of age. Some people, for various reasons, need formula. And so it's not mother's milk. And so if you introduce milk outside of the mother's milk or even formula before 3 months of age, they're noticing spikes. They even notice some spikes after 7 months of age, all the way up through to like 5 years old. So again, lots of studies here, and I'd love to go into more in depth, but today I want to keep this short, sweet, and to the point, like a 5-minute kind of focus thing. So in the next couple of weeks, I'll do more research and come up with another podcast episode specifically that goes into the more specifics. But the first year of life is the most important from what I've read. And for more meat on this, again, I'll make another podcast episode. But now let's focus on the gist of this. Why does this matter? Studies suggest that casein, which is a protein found in dairy, may trigger inflammation in people living with autoimmune conditions like lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, Hashimoto's, thyroiditis. And while not everyone reacts to dairy in the same way, because not everyone reacts to an autoimmune condition in the same way, we're all unique, it can be a hidden contributor to things like joint pain, bloating, GI distress, chronic sinus issues, skin flares like eczema, rosacea, those sorts of things. So the research in this particular article is very compelling. The authors reviewed over 50 studies and found evidence that certain proteins in cow's milk, like the casein and of course whey as well, might trigger or worsen autoimmune diseases in some people. Let's look at the main points. Number one, we have molecular mimicry. So bovine milk proteins, cow's milk proteins, can and do resemble human cell proteins. There is a particular percentage breakdown. Again, I'll go into that later. It's a process called molecular mimicry, which means that your immune system might confuse these milk proteins for your own tissue and then attack both. This has been observed in diseases such as type 1 diabetes, multiple sclerosis, rheumatoid arthritis, and systemic lupus. Number 2, we have the role of leaky gut. So another major factor, we call it increased intestinal permeability. It's leaky gut. So normally our gut lining is, if we're healthy, it's intact. If we have enough damage and inflammation, over time we get holes in the lining of our intestine, which is a problem. Because if you have a damaged gut lining, these milk proteins, along with other things, can then pass into our bloodstream, and then they trigger an immune response. They can. And this is especially important for people already predisposed to autoimmune conditions, because over time, if you constantly get this leaky gut and these repetitive insults to our immune system, it can trigger potentially autoimmune disease. And if we already have an autoimmune condition, and a lot of the time we have leaky gut, then we have this added insult to injury, and they can cause flares. So we want our gut lining, right, to be healthy and intact. And a lot of the time in autoimmune conditions, we don't. It's called leaky gut. And so that's another contributing factor. And then the third one is that not all milk is created equal. And here's something that really did stand out to me. When I think about milk, I think about cow's milk. That's what I was exposed to growing up. But there are other forms of milk, and they don't react the same way in our bodies because of the composition, their type of milk composition. And again, that'll be in a future episode. But according to this article, cow's milk, bovine milk, it's most commonly linked to autoimmune reactivity. It contains casein and whey, and in certain proportions and types that can and do trigger inflammation. It also contains beta-lactoglobulin and bovine serum albumin, which is a protein which can cross-react with human tissue. We have goat milk, which is slightly different protein structure, and due to this, it's better tolerated in certain autoimmune conditions and cases. But it still contains, obviously, the casein, and it can still trigger symptoms in certain individuals. Now, when I say buffalo milk, that was interesting to me to read that. I was like, hadn't really thought about that. It's similar to cow's milk in its protein profile, though. So that should give you a red flag. If it's similar in protein profile to cow's milk, then it still contains the same proportions of casein and whey, the same general types. So it's not generally recommended as a substitute or alternative for those with dairy sensitivities. But the one that really was like, whoa, was surprising was camel's milk. So the studies cited in the review showed camel's milk may have immune modulating benefits, which I was like, whoa. Again, North America, camel's milk, obviously very popular in the Middle East and in certain parts of Africa, the continent of Africa. So I get it because that's where they are. I mean, over in the United States and in Canada and Mexico, we don't have camels. So unless they're in some type of preserve or something like that. But what was really exciting is that it's shown to have a lower allergenic potential and fewer cross-reactive proteins. So all of that gobbledygook to say it's better for us. It's much better for us. So the clinical research notes improvements in autism, type 1 diabetes, lupus. It's shown to help with people that have hay fever, like allergies, even in treatments for some types of cancers, and even in tuberculosis. So it has like these immune modulating effects. It's got antibacterial, antiviral properties to it. It's got a good protein, and it's just anti-inflammatory, which is what we used to think cow's milk was. And then people that can, consume cow's milk and not have a problem, it's great. There's a large portion of the world's population that can't handle lactose, and camel milk does have lactose in it, but not to the certain extent that causes issues. And also, it just is, it really does show that it can improve gut lining in people with already existing autoimmune conditions. Now, the caveats here: camel milk is very expensive over in different parts of the world, that it's not common, right? So in North America, it would be very, very expensive. Also, camel milk is not pasteurized. So the pasteurization process for milk over in North America and around the world is a really important feature, especially if you're prone to infections, like with people living with autoimmune disease, because we're really prone to infection. And so E. coli, salmonella, those sorts of things in the pasteurization process get taken care of and handled, and then we can safely consume milk. However, in camel milk, the properties, if you go through pasteurization, which is that heating process, it takes away all those good properties. So, having said that, with anything, always talk to your healthcare providers first and foremost, as they know you best, and talk to them about this, because it has been studied in people with autoimmune conditions. But I would never recommend going out and just taking something or doing something, exercise, food, whatever, medications, supplements, anything like that, without discussing this with your own healthcare team. That's super, super important, because it could cause you an issue, and we don't want that. So if this is curious to you, is surprising to me, I would definitely talk to your healthcare providers about this. Your rheumatologists, anybody, nephrologists, anybody that's out there that's in your healthcare team, I would definitely talk to them about it and see if it's right for you before you do this. It's, like I said, very expensive too. And camel milk also varies when it's collected and how it's collected. So you might get better properties the closer postpartum that they collect the milk than if it was like 6 months later. And so that can vary. So you want a reputable brand. You want to talk first and foremost, talk to your healthcare team first. Don't just go out and get this stuff. Talk to your healthcare team first. You want to make sure you get a reputable brand, and it's expensive. So, but I thought that was interesting. I thought that was really curious. And I'm going to have a future episode on this, because there's a lot to digest here. Not to be no pun intended. It's just, there's a lot to go into this. And I just think it deserves an episode, a really full length episode. So, again, if you're experiencing symptoms like fatigue, joint pain, rashes, gut issues, then the type of milk you're consuming might be part of the problem. You could try an elimination period. So if you're curious, try cutting out all dairy for like 14 days and track your symptoms using a simple journal, like a notebook or an app, or you can use your phone. Like a lot of the smartphones have the note section. And you can keep track for the next 14 days about your energy levels. You want to note that. You want to note joint stiffness. So if it's like RA in the morning, you're going to have joint stiffness for longer than 30 minutes every day. See if it decreases over the next 14 days. If you have any joint stiffness, see if that decreases, if it gets better. Skin changes, see if that gets better. And GI comfort or discomfort. See the bloating and everything else. See if that any or all of it gets better. And then talk to your healthcare team about this too first. And then you would want to reintroduce one dairy product at a time. And this means giving it several days, like 5-6 days. And then watch your own body's response to it. Write that information down. And then you've got this wonderful journal to then give to your healthcare team. And then you can get with a dietitian or a nutritionist and then kind of formulate a meal plan around that too. So there's just a little tip, and it's very simple and it doesn't cost anything. And always, again, I'm going to beat this one in. Talk to your healthcare team first. So next, I've got a listener question. It says, "Hi, Dr. Kat. I've got lupus and started feeling worse after my protein shakes and cheese." I love cheese. I know. Yeah, that's great. Can't eat it. Not very much, but I love it. "I switched to oat milk and I feel a bit better. could dairy really be making it worse? Well, the answer to that is probably, potentially yes. So for people, again, with lupus or any other autoimmune, living with autoimmune disease, certain milk proteins, obviously from cow, the casein in it, potentially the whey, may increase inflammation and trigger immune activity. So here's something too. Plant-based milks like oat, almond, coconut. I've tried all of them. I love coconut better than I love almond. Again, this is just personal. Oat milk is great. I do also know anecdotally that oat milk, if you have any kind of like AFib, atrial flutter, AFib, this is again anecdotal. I've read the studies on this, that oat milk can potentially help reduce the occurrences of that. Yeah. So again, that's for a future episode too. But anecdotally, it does help. Oat milk does help with that. But you can do plant-based milks. So you can still have like quote milk, but it's like oat, almond, coconut. So you don't have the casein or the whey in it. So it's just a safer bet. And if you still want to try dairy though, talk to your healthcare team about Camel milk. As it is emerging as this like alternative with possible immune balancing effects and gut restoring effects too, though it's obviously harder to find and more expensive. If that's not an option, potentially talk to your healthcare team about goat milk. Maybe that could work too. Final thoughts, take home thoughts. Dairy doesn't affect everyone the same way. Just like autoimmune disease, again, doesn't affect everybody the same way. We have different autoimmune diseases too. So for me, lupus, I, fortunately right now do not have kidney involvement, but there are a lot of people with lupus nephritis and that sort of thing. So again, everybody's unique, even in like lupus or even in rheumatoid arthritis or multiple sclerosis. We all progress differently. We all, have different, things. There are similarities, obviously, because it's RA or it's lupus, but we're unique. So we need to take a unique standpoint and have a unique plan for it. So dairy can affect us differently. And for people with autoimmunity, the type of dairy may matter more, right, than you think. So if you're struggling with fatigue, inflammation, GI symptoms, rashes, unpredictable symptoms, an elimination trial from this cow's milk and from dairy in general is potentially a good thing. Talk to your physicians about it, or even a shift away toward goat or camel milk could offer insight into this. And then remember, I always recommend, again, talking with your qualified healthcare provider when making these dietary changes. And then, of course, it would be great if you could include a dietitian, nutritionist, something like that. And if you're looking for more support, don't forget, I do have a mini course called the Fatigue Fix, which is available now. And inside, we talk about food triggers, symptom tracking, and then, of course, how to reclaim some of that energy that gets zapped from us without all the gimmicks. So you can check it out at innovationsmedicationmanagement.com. I have an actual page for that. And just stay informed, stay well if you can, and keep advocating for your health. It's extremely important. Speak up. And until next time, I'm Dr. Kat, and we will talk soon. Thank you for listening.